The courtyard was carved from moonstone, its walls cold and echoing with the weight of judgment. Beneath the pale light of dawn she knelt, wrists bound in silver chain, head bowed before the throne of the Alpha King. The crowd was silent, the air trembling between heartbeat and execution. The scent of iron and frost filled her lungs, and though fear pulsed through her veins, her eyes burned steady, defiant even in despair. The king sat cloaked in darkness, his crown catching the faintest glint of light. His gaze was colder than the steel of the blade resting beside him. "You trespassed into the sacred grounds of the Luna Temple," his voice thundered, deep as a growl and final as death. "You bear the scent of betrayal." The girl lifted her head slowly, meeting his eyes, and for a moment something ancient flickered between them. Not recognition, not yet, but something that made the Alpha hesitate, a whisper from the blood that ruled them both. "I sought refuge," she said quietly. "Not forgiveness?" Her words carried through the silence like wind through grave dust. Around them the pack murmured, whispers of witchcraft, omen, curse. She was not one of them. She never had been. And yet she knelt within their walls, marked by the same moon that blessed their kind. The king rose, descending the steps like a storm given form. "Refuge does not come with blood on its hands," he said, circling her. His presence consumed the air, the scent of dominance and danger mingling with smoke. Her lips parted, trembling. "Then take it. My life, my blood, if that will free me." For a fleeting instant his eyes softened, something pulling at the thread of reason, but then the moment snapped. "Execution at sunrise," he ordered. "Let her crimes be cleansed by the first light." The guards dragged her away as the first ray of dawn pierced the clouds. She did not cry. She only looked at the moon fading behind the mist, whispering to it, as if it could hear, and perhaps it did, because as the light touched her skin, the mark she never knew she bore began to glow. The morning came slow, the sun bleeding over the mountains like a wound refusing to close. The execution square was empty but for the guards sharpening their blades and the distant murmurs of wolves stirring in the forest beyond the walls. The Alpha King stood on the terrace above them, staring down at the condemned girl below. He had slept little, haunted by something that made no sense, the ghost of a scent that had clung to her as she was dragged away. He knew every scent in his kingdom. He could track fear, deceit, and loyalty with a single breath. But hers unsettled him. It wasn't merely familiar, it was sacred. The kind of scent written in bloodlines, not memory. A scent that shouldn't exist anymore. He inhaled, and there it was again, faint, carried on the morning wind. Moonfire and rain. The scent of his mate, the blade in his hand slipped slightly as he gripped the railing. Knuckles whitening, impossible. His mate had been taken from him, years ago, burned under the crimson eclipse that had cursed his pack. The goddess herself had sworn no bond would ever be forged again. And yet every instinct in him screamed that the impossible was standing in chains below. He turned sharply toward his beta. "Bring her to me." The beta hesitated. "My king, the sentence?" "Now," he growled, and even the air trembled down in the courtyard. She felt it, the sudden shift, the weight of a tension that wasn't born of hatred this time. When they pulled her from the holding cell, she didn't struggle. Her pulse quickened, her skin burning with that same strange warmth that had ignited under the moon dot as they led her into the throne hall once more. The Alpha stood waiting, not as a judge, but as something far more dangerous. His eyes burned gold, feral, uncertain. He stepped closer, breathing her in. For a heartbeat the world fell away. Then his expression broke, shock, disbelief, fury, and something else he couldn't name. "You," he whispered, voice trembling like thunder held at bay. "You wear her scent." Asterisk. For a long moment the hall was silent, a silence so thick it felt alive, pulsing with the tremor of something sacred awakening. The guards looked uneasy, shifting in place as the Alpha King's golden eyes darkened to molten amber. His jaw clenched, the faint sound of his breath echoing in the cold chamber. "What trick is this?" he hissed, circling her slowly. "Who sent you wearing her scent?" The girl flinched but did not look away. "No one sent me." Her voice was steady, though her heart thundered beneath her ribs. "I don't even know who you speak of." He stopped behind her, his presence suffocating, his power brushing against her like fire against frost. "Do not lie to me." "That scent?" He inhaled again, shuddering, as though the air itself betrayed him. "It belongs to someone who is long dead." Her lips parted, confusion and fear battling across her face. "Then perhaps I carry her curse." His hand shot out, gripping her arm, forcing her to turn toward him. The moment his fingers brushed her skin, a pulse of light rippled through the hall, soft, golden, and brief, but unmistakable. The guards gasped. The beta stumbled backward, whispering a prayer to the moon goddess. The king froze, his expression shattering. No. But there it was, faint and flickering beneath the grime and blood, the crescent-shaped birthmark glowing just below her collarbone. The mark of the Luna dash bound out every wolf in the room lowered their heads instinctively, the ancient magic of the bond searing through the air. The king's heart thundered as if trying to claw its way free from his chest. "It's not possible," he whispered. "The goddess promised there would be no second Luna," she said. He stopped, the memory of the last prophecy slicing through his mind like a blade. "When the dead moon rises, love will wear the face of guilt." He stumbled back, eyes wide. "What are you?" She met his gaze, trembling yet fierce. "You tell me, my king." The mark glowed brighter, responding not to fear, but recognition. And from the high window, the moon, though drowned in daylight, burned faintly silver. Asterisk. The chamber erupted like a storm breaking through stone. Gasps turned to murmurs, murmurs to frantic whispers that crawled through the air like wildfire. The guards stepped back, eyes wide with reverence and fear, while the court elders dropped to their knees, muttering old prayers that hadn't been spoken since the wars of the first bloodlines. Only the king stood frozen in place, a statue of disbelief carved by fate itself. His beta, Aldrich, stepped forward, voice trembling. "My king, if she bears the Luna mark, then she cannot be touched. The last prophecy forbade it. To claim her is to defy the goddess," finished one of the elders, his milky eyes glinting with terror. The last time the moon's mark returned, kingdoms burned and pacts vanished into ash. The king's jaw tightened. And yet here she stands, alive, marked, breathing. His gaze cut back to her, cold, furious, but laced with something far more dangerous, yearning. "If this is the goddess's will, then she toys with me again." The girl raised her head, her chains glinting in the dim light. "I did not ask for this," she said, her voice trembling but steady. "If I am cursed, then end it. You already condemned me once." The king's eyes narrowed. "You think death will end this?" He stepped closer, his aura pressing down on everyone in the room like a tide of molten power. "This is no curse. This is the echo of something ancient." Behind them, the elders whispered the verse that haunted the royal bloodline. "When the dead moon bleeds silver again, and the wolf without a name stands before the throne, the king shall smell love in the scent of his own sin." A chill rippled through the hall. The king's pulse pounded against his throat, the meaning clawing at the edges of his reason. "Sin?" he whispered, voice cracking like old wood. His gaze flicked to her wrists, her trembling lips, and the faint glow of the mark. It wasn't just fate binding them, it was atonement. Because the scent that haunted him belonged to the woman he once condemned to die. The king's vision blurred as memory and reality collided. The hall around him seemed to fade, replaced by the ghost of another dawn, one painted in blood and fire. Years ago, under a crimson moon, he had stood in the same spot, holding judgment over a woman accused of betrayal. A healer, a Luna born, said to have consorted with forbidden powers. Her name had been Seren, yet she was gentle, with eyes that shimmered like frost, and a voice that always trembled when she spoke his name. He had loved her once, but when the war tore through the pacts and the goddess demanded a sacrifice, he chose his throne over her life. He condemned her and watched her burn. Her last words haunted him every night. "My blood will find you again, my love, and when it does, the moon will judge us both." He blinked, staring at the girl before him now, her hair tangled, her wrists bruised, yet her gaze was so terribly familiar. The shape of her eyes, the tilt of her chin, echoes of a face he had buried long ago. "You can't be her," he whispered, half to himself. "She's dead." The girl frowned. "You keep saying her. Who was she?" He stepped back as if struck. "A curse," he said bitterly. "The last woman to carry that mark." His hand trembled as he reached out again, this time not in anger but disbelief. The faint crescent under her skin pulsed once more, and his wolf, the beast bound to his soul, howled from within, recognizing what his heart refused to. His beta's voice broke the trance. "My king, you must not claim her. To do so will awaken the crimson oath, the one sealed by Seren's death. The goddess's wrath will return." But the king couldn't hear him. The air around the girl shimmered like moonlight through smoke, and a whisper echoed in his mind, the same voice that once promised vengeance. "I told you my blood would find you again." The king's knees nearly buckled. Fate hadn't just come for him. It had come wearing the eyes of the woman he killed. The torches along the throne hall flickered violently, as if sensing the tension in the air. A low hum began to rise from the walls, a vibration deep and ancient, as though the stone itself remembered. The scent of burned sage and cold wind drifted in, carrying with it something unearthly, the sharp tang of divine presence. Aldrich's voice trembled as he fell to one knee. "The goddess is watching, my king. The mark is awakened under her gaze." The king's breath hitched. He could feel it now, a pressure behind his ribs, a heartbeat that wasn't his own. It was the pulse of the moon, synchronizing with the girl's trembling light. Her skin shimmered faintly, each breath she took illuminating the chamber in a rhythm that matched the heavens. The goddess's power didn't come as a blessing, it came as judgment. Suddenly, the great moon symbol above the dais, a relic carved in silverstone, began to glow. Threads of pale light weaved through the cracks, dripping like liquid mercury. The elders gasped, clutching their prayer beads. The ancient sign had not shone in over a century. The girl looked up, tears forming in her wide eyes. "What's happening to me?" The king's voice was soft, reverent. "The goddess has claimed you." Her chains rattled as she staggered back. "I didn't ask her to." The light brightened, forcing everyone to shield their eyes. The silver radiance wrapped around the girl like a cocoon, her screams echoing off the marble as her body lifted an inch from the ground. The king's wolf howled deep within his soul, sensing the shift, the claim, the divine rewriting of her fate. When the light finally dimmed, she collapsed, breathless, trembling, her mark now glowing like a live ember. The goddess had spoken without words, but the meaning was clear. She could no longer be executed. The moon had chosen her dot, and the king, the man who had ordered her death, was now bound by divine law to protect her. That night. Silence hung over the castle like a shroud. The moonlight spilled through the high arched windows, cold and merciless, illuminating the throne where hours ago the king had condemned her. Now that same throne stood empty, the seat of power abandoned for the first time in years. Down the shadowed corridors, past rows of trembling guards who dared not meet his eyes, the king walked alone, his cloak dragging through the frost. And in his arms, wrapped in a tattered cloak, was the very girl he had sworn to kill. Her body was feverish, her breaths uneven, but her pulse, faint and erratic, still beat beneath the mark glowing on her skin. Every step the king took felt like rebellion, every heartbeat a treasonous drum. "Seal the western wing," he ordered curtly as he passed the sentries. "No one enters without my command." The guards hesitated, uncertain, until they caught his gaze, sharp, golden, and absolute. They bowed wordlessly. He laid her upon the fur-lined bed in his private chamber, a place no outsider had ever seen. For a long moment he stood at the edge, staring at her face, pale, serene, framed by hair like dark silk. His hands flexed, torn between duty and something far deeper. "Why you?" he murmured. "Why must it always be you?" Her eyelids fluttered, and a whisper slipped past her lips, soft as breath. "You smell like fire and sorrow." He froze. It wasn't just the words. It was her tone, calm, haunting, and painfully familiar. The same voice that had whispered his name on that crimson night years ago. He clenched his jaw and turned away, gripping the edge of a table until the wood splintered under his hand. "Forgive me, goddess," he muttered, "but I cannot obey." Outside, the wind howled through the towers, carrying the faint echo of a wolf's cry, a warning from the night itself. The king had defied the heavens, and somewhere beyond the mountains, something ancient had awakened to make him pay for it. The girl awoke to the sound of crackling embers and the faint scent of pine resin burning in the hearth. Her lashes fluttered open, and for a moment she forgot where she was. The room around her shimmered in muted gold, tall windows draped with velvet, walls etched with ancient runes that pulsed faintly under the light of the moon. It was beautiful and terrifying. because this wasn't a cell. It was a king's chamber, and she was alive. Her throat ached, her skin feverish, but something else was wrong, something deeper. Every time she blinked, she saw flashes that didn't belong to her, hands covered in ash, a burning field, a man with golden eyes whispering her name before the flames consumed them both. The visions came in fragments, sharp, painful, like broken glass pressed against her mind. She gasped, clutching her temples. "Stop, please, stop." From the corner of the room, his voice broke through the haze, low, steady, almost tender. "You're safe now." The king stood near the window, his silhouette framed by moonlight. He looked exhausted, stripped of the cold authority that once defined him. For the first time, he seemed human. "I ordered your death," he said quietly, his tone heavy with disbelief. "But the moon spared you." Her gaze met his, wary, searching. "Why?" He hesitated, eyes flicking to the faint crescent mark glowing beneath her collarbone. "Because she remembers something I've tried to forget." A tremor rippled through her body. "Who is she?" "The moon goddess," he said, stepping closer, his voice dropping to a whisper. "And perhaps someone else." The air between them hummed, not with fear, but recognition. A pull neither could maim. Suddenly the torches dimmed. Her mark flared white-hot, casting light across the chamber. Her heartbeat thundered, and from deep within her chest came a whisper not her own. "He burned me once. Don't let him do it again." She gasped, eyes wide. The king froze, because he heard it too. The voice of the woman he had killed was alive, speaking through the girl he had tried to destroy. The king's blood ran cold. That voice, he knew it. It wasn't a sound one could mistake. It carried the same ache that had haunted his dreams for centuries, the same melody that echoed in his bones when the moon rose high. He staggered back a step, eyes locked on the trembling girl. "What did you just say?" His voice was rough, brittle, like glass ready to shatter. The girl gasped for breath, clutching the sheets as her mark flared brighter, casting ribbons of silver light that danced along the walls. "It's not me," she choked. "Someone's inside." She's screaming. Her body arched in pain as the air thickened with power, a pulse that shook the candles from their holders. The moonlight pouring through the windows seemed to twist, forming a halo around her body, a storm of divinity and memory. The king rushed forward, gripping her shoulders. "Look at me," he commanded, his voice both desperate and pleading. "Tell me what you see." Tears streamed down her face. "Fire, a battlefield, wolves, and you." Her eyes flicked open, glowing now not with her own color, but molten silver. "You killed her." "You killed me." He froze, every breath caught in his chest. The words struck like a blade drawn from the past. "No," he whispered, shaking his head, though the truth clawed at him. "It wasn't like that." The floor beneath them groaned as if the castle itself remembered. A low rumble echoed through the stone, dust sifting from the ceiling. The ancient runes along the walls ignited in soft blue fire, one by one, each glowing with a ghostly hum. The girl's eyes rolled back. Her voice deepened, layered, echoing. "You swore your soul to the goddess in blood. You promised her a life for a life. And now your debt has returned." He fell to his knees before her, his heart breaking open. The curse wasn't hers. It was his, born of love, betrayal, and a promise the heavens had never forgotten. And the girl before him was not his prisoner, she was his punishment. The king didn't sleep that night. The walls whispered her name, not the girl's, but the one that had been buried in legend, the one whose ashes still haunted his hands. He paced before the dying fire, eyes hollow, mind echoing with her words. You killed me. Each syllable gnawed at his sanity, until at last, when the moon dipped low, he turned toward the forbidden stair, the one sealed beneath the throne. The guards tried to stop him, but one look silenced them. Torch in hand, he descended into the dark. The air grew colder, heavier, tasting of salt and dust. Whispers slithered between the stones, faint prayers or curses, he couldn't tell. The staircase spiraled down for what felt like hours, until it ended before a massive door, carved with a crescent and bound in iron chains. His fingers brushed the lock, and it melted at his touch. Inside waited the one creature who had seen too much and forgotten nothing, the seer of the deep. Her eyes were milk-white, her body frail, but her presence filled the cavern like thunder. You have returned, Marcus of the Blood Moon, she rasped. I warned you long ago that the past would rise in the flesh. He dropped to one knee. Tell me what this is, the girl. She bears her voice, her scent, even her pain. The seer's bony hand traced symbols in the air, shimmering threads weaving a vision between them. A woman cloaked in silver fire, a man bathed in shadow, their hands bound by a cord of red light. You made a vow at her pyre, she whispered. You begged the goddess to give her soul peace, but when she refused, you cursed yourself instead. You asked to find her again, in any life, in any form. His breath caught, and she returned. Yes, the seer said, eyes glowing faintly, but every vow has its price. You didn't ask for her love, my king. You asked for her return. He rose slowly, the torchlight trembling in his grip. Then tell me, seer, he said, how do I save her this time before I damn us both again? The seer's gaze, pale as starlight reflected on water, drifted over the king, as if peering through his flesh and into the marrow of his sins. Her brittle fingers tightened around her staff carved from bone and shadow. You seek to save her, she rasped, her voice echoing like wind through a tomb. But salvation was never part of the bargain you made. Marcus's jaw clenched. Then tell me how to end it. The seer tilted her head, her empty eyes burning faintly blue. You can't end what was bound by blood and divine wrath. You can only change the path it walks. She stepped closer, her presence immense despite her fragile form. When she remembers who she once was, her soul will burn from within. The curse is simple. The memory kills the vessel. His heart stilled. Then I'll make her forget. The seer's mouth curled into something between pity and awe. You cannot erase what the moon has carved into destiny, but you can delay it. She reached out, pressing a trembling hand to his chest. There is one way. You must make her love you without memory. Her heart must choose you anew. Only then will the goddess see fit to rewrite her design. He stepped back, the weight of that sentence sinking into him like stone. You mean to tell me that after centuries of ruin I must earn her heart again? A soft, mirthless laugh left the seer's lips. To earn it is mercy, Marcus. For if she remembers before she loves you, she will not see her king. She will see her murderer. The torchlight flickered. throwing his shadow tall against the walls. For a long moment the ancient monarch said nothing. Then, with a quiet fury, he turned toward the stairs. "Then I will make her fall for me before she remembers." The seer's voice followed him into the dark, a warning drenched in sorrow. "Be careful what you wish to heal, my king. The goddess may yet decide that love is the cruelest punishment of all." When Marcus returned to the upper halls, dawn had already begun bleeding into the world, soft streaks of gold washing over the castle's stone. He paused outside her chamber door, hand hovering above the handle, as though the air itself burned. Inside he could hear her breathing, light, steady, too human, too fragile for the storm her soul carried. He had fought wars, slain traitors, watched empires collapse under his command. Yet no battle had ever shaken him like this, standing before a sleeping girl who wore his curse upon her skin. He entered quietly. The room still smelled of herbs and smoke, a faint trace of moonlight pooling across her bed. She was awake, sitting upright now, her hair a dark cascade over her shoulders. The sight of him made her flinch. "You," she whispered. "You're the one from my dream." He froze mid-step. "What dream?" Her gaze drifted toward the window, unfocused. A fire, a woman screaming your name, and a blade covered in silver. She shivered, clutching the blanket. It felt too real. Marcus's chest constricted. The seer's words echoed in his mind. "If she remembers before she loves you, she will not see her king. She will see her murderer." He forced a calm smile, masking the tremor beneath his voice. Dreams mean little within these walls. The air here remembers too much. She frowned, sensing the distance in his tone. "Why am I here? Why didn't you let them kill me?" He met her gaze, and for a moment the mask slipped. "Because I couldn't." Something flickered in her eyes, confusion, fear, but also a strange, fragile warmth. She looked away before it could bloom. "I should hate you," she murmured, more to herself than to him. "But when you speak—" Her voice trailed off, trembling. "It doesn't feel like hate." Marcus's breath caught hope and guilt twisting into one unbearable ache. He stepped closer, careful not to touch her. "Then don't try to name it yet," he said softly. "Just stay." And though neither of them understood why, she did dot in the days that followed. The castle changed. The servants whispered that the western wing, long sealed and forbidden, was alive again. At night they heard footsteps that weren't the king's, a faint melody sung by no one, and doors that opened on their own. The guards posted outside the chamber never spoke, but their faces grew pale, their eyes hollow. Something unseen walked those halls with them, something old and remembering. Marcus gave strict orders. No one was to enter that corridor. No one was to speak her name. To the court, the girl did not exist. To him, she was the secret that might either save or doom them all. Every night he visited her, bringing warmth from the fire and bread still steaming from the kitchens, though he never touched the food himself. "You should eat," he'd say quietly. "The body needs strength before the soul can heal." She had stopped asking who he really was. In his presence time felt heavy, distorted, as if she had known him 1,000 times before, but only in pain. Some nights she would wake from nightmares of burning moons and wolves howling under crimson skies, and he would be there, sitting in the corner watching, a silent sentinel wrapped in guilt and longing, but outside her chamber, The world was shifting. The moon goddess's mark that had appeared on her skin now pulsed through the castle stones like a heartbeat. Runes that had lain dormant for centuries began to glow faintly in her presence. The elders of the court took notice, whispering of old prophecies of the eclipsed soul, a spirit reborn from fire to bring balance through destruction. Marcus ignored their murmurs, though he could feel the tension gathering like a storm. Each time he looked at her, he saw traces of both the girl she was and the woman he had once loved, and the space between them terrified him, because every night her dreams burned brighter. Every dawn her eyes held more of the silver glow that didn't belong to this world, and Marcus began to fear that soon she would remember. Rumors like wildfire rarely die quietly, and in a castle built on secrets, whispers spread faster than truth. By the seventh night, even the torches seemed to burn with unease. The king's council gathered in hushed meetings, their loyalty thinning like fog before dawn. Among them was Garrick, his most trusted beta, a wolf who had fought beside him through a dozen wars, who had carried his banner into blood and glory. But even loyalty bends beneath fear. Garrick had seen her, the girl hidden behind the forbidden door. He had caught a glimpse of her face as Marcus entered her chamber, pale as moonlight, her eyes glowing faintly in the dark. And he had felt it, the pulse of divine energy that didn't belong in a mortal body. That night he went to the chapel, knelt before the statue of the moon goddess, and prayed not for forgiveness, but for deliverance. "My king has broken the laws of fate," he whispered. "He shelters what should have been burned. If the goddess demands justice, I will be her hand. At dawn." He sent a raven to the high council. By evening, the castle trembled under the weight of divine inquiry. The high seer arrived, a woman cloaked in white silk that shimmered like frost. Her eyes, silver and sharp, missed nothing. "The moon's light has changed," she told Marcus as she entered his hall. "It burns too cold now. What have you hidden from her?" Marcus met her gaze, expression carved from stone. "I have hidden nothing that wasn't already mine." But the seer's power was old, merciless. "Then you will not object," she said, "if we walk your halls." Garrick's throat tightened. He hadn't expected her to move so swiftly. He had betrayed his king to protect the realm, but as the seer's followers began their sacred search, dread took root in his chest, because deep down he remembered what it meant to stand against Marcus Thorne, the Wolf King, who once defied gods and lived. And if the moon herself was now searching for her lost child, then perhaps no mortal oath could protect them from what would be found. The High Seer's procession moved through the castle, like a storm of light, silent, cold, absolute. Her disciples carried lanterns filled with lunar fire that hissed when they passed shadows. Burning away lies hidden in the walls. Every door they touched turned to frost. Every room they entered hummed with divine tension. By the time they reached the western wing, the air was thick with silver mist, and even the torches bent toward their glow as if afraid. Behind a single locked door, the girl stirred. Her dreams had become violent, flashes of running through forests, bathed in blue flame, of voices chanting her name in languages older than time. Her heart pounded in her chest, sinking with the rhythm of the goddess's footsteps echoing closer. "She's coming," she whispered in her sleep. "She's coming for me." Marcus burst through her door, just as the lantern light began to seep through the cracks of the hall. His eyes were wild, his voice low and urgent. You have to stay quiet. Do not answer her call. No matter what you hear, her breath trembled. The voice in my head, it's louder tonight. He gripped her shoulders, his touch trembling. That's not your voice. It's hers. And if you answer her, she will take you away from me again. Outside, the High Seer stopped before the forbidden door. Her silver eyes narrowed. This one, she said softly. It bleeds with moonlight. Garrick swallowed hard, guilt twisting in his gut. My king forbade entry. The moon outranks kings, the seer replied. She raised her hand. The locks began to glow, melting away like wax. Inside, the girl gasped, her mark flaring with blinding light. The temperature plummeted. Frost bloomed across the floor. The very air seemed to shatter. Marcus stepped between her and the door, his aura flaring in defiance. Dark gold clashing against divine silver. When the door exploded open, the two powers met like night, colliding with dawn. The walls screamed. The goddess's voice filled the air. You dare hide what belongs to me? And for the first time in centuries, the king of wolves dropped to his knees before the light that once cursed him. The chamber blazed with celestial fury. The walls trembled as the goddess's power filled the air, bending light into impossible shapes. The High Seer's body no longer belonged to her. Her form became a vessel of living moonfire. Her voice deepened, echoing with divine resonance that made even the stones weep. You dare keep what I have reclaimed, the goddess thundered, her words shaking the marrow of every living thing in the room. Marcus knelt, his body trembling under the weight of her presence, but his gaze remained locked on the girl behind him. She was sprawled against the bed, glowing with the same light that poured from the goddess's borrowed eyes. She was never yours to claim, Marcus said, his tone breaking the silence like a blade. You gave her life to me once. You bound our souls. You cannot take her without tearing me apart. The goddess's laughter was cold, infinite. You misunderstand your punishment, Wolf King. She was never meant to save you. She was meant to remind you. Her hand, or the seer's, extended toward the girl. The ground split where her shadow touched it, and the air filled with a sound like weeping stars. The girl cried out, clutching her chest as silver veins spread across her skin, pulsing like living moonlight. Stop! Marcus roared. He rose, his aura flaring golden fire, igniting around him like a dying sun rebelling against the night. If you take her, you take me. Is that what you want? Another broken king to curse your name until the heavens rot? The goddess paused, intrigued by his audacity. Her light flickered. You would stand against me again? I would fall 1,000 times if it meant she could live once, he said, his voice raw with something greater than pride, a defiance born from love. For a heartbeat, the divine light faltered. The goddess's power recoiled, rippling through the chamber like retreating waves. Then came a whisper, faint and sorrowful. Love is not defiance, my Wolf, but it is your doom. And just like that, the light vanished. The seer collapsed, lifeless. The goddess had left, but not in mercy. She had left something behind. Silence followed the goddess's departure, a silence too deep, too absolute, as though sound itself had been erased from the air. The chamber was wrecked, the walls cracked, the windows shattered, moonlight spilling across the broken floor like spilled mercury. The High Seer's body lay still, her eyes empty and gray. Garrick stood frozen at the threshold, trembling, unable to comprehend what he'd witnessed. But Marcus didn't look at her corpse. His gaze was fixed on the girl. She was kneeling amid the ruin, her hair tangled, her skin shimmering faintly. The mark at her collarbone, once a soft crescent, had spread, branching across her shoulders like silver lightning. Each vein pulsed with light and time with her heartbeat. When she lifted her head, her eyes glowed the same white blue as the moon above, ancient and inhuman. Where am I?" she whispered, her voice layered, two tones overlapping, hers and another that sounded heart-breakingly familiar. Marcus took a hesitant step forward. "You're safe," he said, though his voice trembled. Her gaze snapped to him. "No, you're lying." A gust of unseen wind swept through the room, extinguishing the candles. The scent of iron filled the air. "You swore to protect me," she said, but it wasn't the girl speaking anymore. It was the echo of the one he had lost. "You promised we'd burn together." "You promised." Marcus staggered, pain flashing in his eyes. "Lyra," he breathed. The name froze the air. Her body convulsed, flashes of memory stabbing through her mind, a blade gleaming beneath the moon, her own scream, the smell of her own blood burning on his hands. She gasped, clutching her chest. "I remember." He moved toward her, desperate. "Don't." The seer warned us, but it was too late. The curse had awakened fully. Light exploded from her skin, raw and blinding, blasting Marcus across the room. When the radiance dimmed, she stood alone, trembling, half human, half divine, her voice shaking the air. "I am not your curse anymore," she said, tears cutting through the glow. "I am your consequence." The storm began with light. It wasn't fire nor wind, but something far older, the raw, untamed force of creation itself. It poured from her body in waves, rippling through the castle stones, shattering glass, and splitting marble columns as though they were made of sand. The moon above turned blood-white, and the very air screamed. Every wolf in the kingdom dropped to their knees, their howls breaking into cries of submission. For the first time in centuries, the power of the moon goddess walked the earth again, and it wore the face of the girl Marcus had tried to save. Marcus rose from the wreckage, his body bruised and bleeding, golden light flickering weakly around him. "Stop!" he shouted through the chaos, his voice nearly drowned by the wind. "You'll destroy everything." But she couldn't hear him. The two souls inside her, the innocent girl and the vengeful echo of Lyra, battled for dominance, twisting the power into fury. Her hair floated in the air like threads of flame, her eyes glowing brighter until tears of light streamed down her face. "It hurts," she sobbed, clutching her chest. "Make it stop." He stumbled toward her, every step a defiance of the divine energy tearing the world apart. The closer he came, the more his aura burned away, his mortal shell straining under the pressure of her power. "You're not alone," he roared, his voice breaking. "You're both of them, the woman I lost and the one I was meant to find. Please, listen to me." Her light flared violently, a shockwave hurling him back. But in that instant she saw him, really saw him, broken, bleeding, yet still reaching for her. The rage faltered. The storm trembled. And then, through the roar of the collapsing world, she whispered his name. Not in anger. In recognition, the moon dimmed, as if holding its breath. The wind stilled. The storm paused between fury and forgiveness, but the mark on her chest pulsed again, brighter, hungrier, and the seer's dying warning echoed in Marcus's mind. If she remembers before she loves you, she will die. The world stood on the edge of ruin. The castle walls groaned beneath the pressure of her power. The air shimmered with energy too vast for mortal skin to contain. Moonlight bled across the stones, forming runes that burned with celestial warning. Marcus stumbled to his feet, his breath ragged, his armor cracked and smoking from the divine heat. Before him stood the woman who was both salvation and undoing, her face streaked with tears of light, her body trembling as the curse within her clawed toward completion. "Marcus," she whispered, her voice fractured, half the soft tone of the girl he had saved, half the echo of the goddess he had betrayed. "It hurts. I can't hold it any more." He stepped forward, though every instinct screamed to flee. "You can," he said hoarsely. "You must." His golden aura flickered, dimming with every heartbeat. "Listen to me. You are not her curse. You are her redemption." Her eyes met his, wide and glimmering. "Redemption?" She echoed. "You took my life. You burned me." He swallowed the ache in his throat, his voice breaking like glass. "And I've burned ever since. You think death freed me? It didn't. It chained me to your memory. Every war, every century, every sunrise, I saw your face in the smoke. I asked the moon to bring you back, not to love me again, but to let me make it right." The wind around them softened. Her glow wavered, no longer blinding, but pulsing in rhythm with his heartbeat. He stepped closer, pressing his trembling hand to her cheek. "If you must kill me to end this," he whispered, "then let that be my penance. But if even a fragment of you remembers what we once were, then live, not for me, for the part of you that the goddess could never destroy." Her tears shimmered like falling stars. For the first time since her awakening, her hand rose, not in anger, but in tenderness. She placed it over his heart. The mark on her skin flared, not white, not silver, but gold. And then, softly, she said his name, not as an accusation, but as a vow reborn. Time seemed to halt, suspended between one heartbeat and the next. The ruins of the castle glowed in the pale gold of her awakening, dust falling through beams of dying moonlight like drifting stars. The world itself seemed to lean in, the wind holding its breath, the stones trembling with reverence. The girl stood before Marcus, her aura rippling like silk and flame. In her eyes, two souls burned, the gentle innocence of who she was, and the divine fury of who she had been. "You gave me death once," she whispered, her voice trembling yet steady. "Now you offer me life." Her hand rested over his heart, feeling the fragile rhythm beneath her palm. What if the two can't exist together? Marcus exhaled, his golden light dimming to a faint halo. "Then let me die knowing I was forgiven." For a long, aching moment they stood locked in silence. The mark between them pulsed brighter and brighter until the world seemed made of nothing but light. Her tears fell, glowing as they touched his skin. "You were never my monster," she said softly. "You were my mirror." The curse began to unravel. The silver veins crawling across her skin shimmered gold, dissolving into warmth instead of pain. The goddess's voice echoed faintly from the heavens, no longer wrathful but mournful. So the wolf chooses love over penance once more, and the moon chooses silence. Marcus smiled faintly. Then we are free. The light burst outward, not in destruction, but in release. The storm broke into a million motes of golden dust that drifted into the air, carrying the scent of rain and ash and peace. When it faded, the castle was quiet again. The curse was gone. At the edge of dawn, the girl knelt beside him. His eyes, once fierce with defiance, were now still, a king's peace at last. She placed her hand over his chest, where the mark now glowed faintly. "You kept your promise," she whispered. The first rays of sun touched her face, soft and forgiving, and somewhere far above, the moon goddess wept, not in anger this time, but in love.